Hey guys, this is Din.
And this is Rish.
And welcome to Z Talk, the Ocarina of Time edition.
Well, we've decided to do a special edition podcast this month because, surprise, surprise, Ocarina of Time for the 3DS has come out.
Yay!
Unless you're in Australia, in which case it comes out on the 30th. So right away, guys, they promise.
So we decided to do a exclusively Ocarina of Time podcast for you guys.
And just talk about some of the different topics that come up with Ocarina of Time.
And, specifically, Ocarina of Time 3D.
So, sit back, relax, maybe grab a drink, and...
let's move on to the podcast.
You bet.
So first up on the Ocarina of Time podcast is Miss Xinnamin.
And she's going to be leading us through the game of Ocarina of Time through parody.
It sounds like fun.
It will be fun. Let's go ahead and listen to it.
Hey everyone, Xinnamin here again with your monthly dose of Zelda spice. Now, in celebration of the recent release of Ocarina of Time 3DS, I thought, what better way to celebrate than to make fun of every tiny little piece of nonsense to be found in the greatest game ever made? Okay, well maybe not every piece of nonsense, as I haven't quite that much of an attention span to look quite that hard for things to make fun of, but I am still going to cover quite a lot. Is there really a point in me doing this? Not really, I just like insulting things. And since there's a lot of material to cover, we are going to go through this pretty quickly. Basically, it's going to be a sardonic retelling of the entire game, Abridged. So, fasten your seatbelts on and hold on tight. So, let's start from the very beginning of the game. Good old Kokiri Forest, where you meet your very own Captain Obvious Alarm. Fairy partner. Navi! And you wander around the forest a little bit, talking to the locals, most of whom look 100% exactly alike. And one of which seems to be doing, questionable things to a rock. If there are any kids in the audience, please ignore that last statement. And you're also dodging boulders that defy all physics to find that sword. Not too bad, but then you meet the Great Deku Tree, who is apparently cursed and sick, and has decided that the only cure is for Link to go inside of him and remove the curse. So now Link is inside the guardian deity of his forest home. And the inside is huge. And apparently has torches inside. Can someone explain why there are torches inside of a giant tree god? I mean, does that make any sense whatsoever? Anyways, that aside, the big tree god eventually dies, which I feel is probably less from Goma and more from this whole storing fire inside of him for who knows how long. But now anyway, Link is off to save the world. And in comes Saria. Oh, hi, Link. I hear you're off on a ridiculously dangerous journey despite never having set foot outside of the forest before. Here's a magical ocarina to remember me by. Isn't she such a sweet girl? And now what does Link do? He just awkwardly runs away. Yeah, Link, you're a real ladies' man. But his girl troubles are a completely different topic. I will not touch on that too much right now. Anyways, so now he meets Kaepora Gaebora, that owl that never shuts up. Never. He tricks you to make sure you'll listen to him, at least twice, each time you meet him. And you meet him several times. He talks a lot. Okay, I think you get the point. Anyway, get on past him and you'll find pretty beautiful Hyrule Field. Only you won't think it's so pretty and beautiful when you have giant mutant plants twice your size trying to slice your head off and zombie invasions every freaking night. I don't get it either. Now you're at Castletown. And the castle itself is guarded by men who probably can't see more than 5 meters in front of their face and slack off so badly that they never bother to notice the big fat sleeping dude by the door. You think that's pretty hard to miss, and yet they still manage to miss it. But anyways, you sneak past the guards. It's really, really easy because they are seriously freaking blind. And you'll meet Zelda. And you have to sit through her really, really animated monologue about how good she is at spying on her dear daddy, the king. And then, holy Jesus, Impa, you are one scary-looking nanny. You have to admit, she is one scary-looking nanny. Moving on to Kakariko Village now, where chickens run amok and carpenters dance on railings, where shields and songs are buried in graves of animate corpses, where creepy dudes spend all day staring at windmills, and yeah, that's Kakariko Village in a nutshell. And now you're off to Death Mountain, which is inhabited by Gorons, which are rock people who eat rocks. And there is something not quite right about the fact that they are rock people who eat rocks. Even worse, they will only eat specific kinds of rocks because apparently normal rocks taste bad, and that they would rather starve than dine on uncultured foods or something. That's picky to a T. It really is. So Link has to go and play hero, and he decides to save them all after dancing a horribly coordinated jig with their big rock chief, and then nearly gets stoned to death via hug when he's all done. Okay. And then he goes and climbs up to the top of the volcano and learns magic from a half-naked fairy chick wearing vines and leather boots. Yeah, ignore that last part too. So now we're off to Zoras Domain, where the princess has disappeared, apparently having been swallowed by the Zora's own guardian deity. Yeah, that's totally believable. Anyways, and after waiting an eternity for Big Fat King Zora to move that giant bulk of his out of the way... No, seriously, have you watched him? It takes freaking forever. Anyways, you get to meet said guardian deity, and guess what? You get to go inside of him, too! And if you thought the Great Deku Tree was weird for housing fires inside of himself, Lord Jabu Jabu houses cows. Albeit only in Master Quest, but still, cows. Inside of this giant whale. Some of them are, like, embedded into the walls of his intestine. I don't know what happened there. So you go through Lord Jabu Jabu and you find Ruto. Good old Ruto, who gives Link more girl problems than he'll ever need in a lifetime. Again, totally different topic. I will touch on that some other time because that is just really kind of creepy and I do not want to corrupt any children's minds right now. Because, you know, before Link knows it, he's engaged. And he's only 10. What just happened? So now we get to open the door of time, get tricked by Ganondorf, find ourselves in the apocalypse after a 7-year slumber. And you'd think after a 7-year slumber that Link would be thin as a stick and weaker than a stick of instant jello, but the goddesses can't really have a wimp running around with the fate of the world on his shoulders, so yeah. Now enter mysterious ninja dude who is actually a lady. I'd like to make a note that she, and yes, I recognize Sheik as a female, deal with it, but she mentions that you have to find the sages, one of which is inside a goddess of the sand. Great! More things inside of deities. Moving on. We first have to stop at Kakariko Village, where you race a ghost through a maze under his own grave for a treasure. Do Hylians even use graves for burial of the dead? I mean, really. And then we're off to Lon Lon Ranch, now taken over by that crazy dude with the twitchy mustache who thinks that he can trap Link inside the ranch for all eternity, despite the fact that Link has just won a horse who can jump over really high freaking walls. And I've always wondered what Ingo thought he would do after he trapped Link. I mean, what is he going to do with the trapped kid? Never mind, let's not think about that. Moving on. And now we ride off to Kokiri Forest, which is now horrifically scary. And you travel to the Forest Temple, which really looks more like a dilapidated old mansion built in the middle of nowhere. Seriously, who needs a mansion in the middle of a jungle? Well, it's haunted, so I guess that makes up for any illogicities, I suppose. And you deal with that, and then you head off to Death Mountain. Again, the tough rock Goron people prove to be absolutely defenseless despite being big, tough rock people, as they are imprisoned in jail cells within the volcano. Can someone explain to me why there are jail cells within a volcano? And why does another half-naked fairy lady live inside of the volcano? Why can't she move in with her half-naked fairy sister on top of the volcano where it's not freaking burning hot? You know, near where that giant Goron just sits around unable to do anything about Ganondorf despite being the size of a mountain. I wonder what he does all the time with all that free time he has. He's huge. He probably can't move very far without destroying things. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Moving on. We go back to Zoras Domain, which is now totally frozen. Even that fat king. Totally frozen. And if you thaw him, he'll just sit on his icy perch like nothing ever happened. Like, apparently he can't feel the cold through his thick blubber or something, even though you'd think he'd notice that his people's guardian deity has suddenly gone AWOL. Oh well. And off to Lake Hylia and the infamous water temple. In comes Ruto again, who, other than seriously creeping Link out again with her odd, obsessive engagement monologue, she just goes on and on and on about that. And then she just simply disappears off in a dead end. And also, lady, could your temple be more convoluted? Well, on the bright side, after beating Morpha, Ruru is now so thankful that she breaks off the engagement and it never really happened. Yay, Link's off the hook! Now back to Kakariko Village, which is on fire, despite it raining heavily, and thundering, and lightninging. And Link and the cross-dressing ninja lady get their butts handed to them by an invisible well demon. Speaking of the well, I'm just not going to go talk about the Song of Storms paradox or the crazy windmill dude that is involved in the Song of Storms paradox because frankly, they're just nuts and they are going to make mine and your head hurt. But anyways, so now Link has to go chase down that well demon. Did you know it doesn't stop raining in Kakariko until after you beat the Shadow Temple? How does nobody notice the odd weather, the constant storming? And why is there a torture chamber in a freaking temple? Aren't temples supposed to be, you know, sacred or something? And then what's the deal with Bongo Bongo? I mean, you're battling a giant decapitated monster whose hands are disjointed from his body and whose neck is really just an eye socket. And you're fighting him on a giant bongo drum, surrounded by poison, in the basement of this temple. I mean, does any of this make any sense? Moving right along. You're off to Gerudo Valley, land of the crazy desert Amazon chicks and their poorly designed prison structure. You'd think after escaping that ill-guarded cell for like the 5th time or something that they'd know they're supposed to remove Link's equipment. Well, regardless, they're so impressed with Link's cunning, or maybe just their own lack of planning. Well, they're impressed with something, and they decide to make Link an honorary Gerudo thief. Congrats, Link, you are now a crazy desert Amazon chick. Now, after he gets to the actual spirit temple and goes inside the goddess of the sand, at least this time it's not a living deity, but anyways, he'll find Naburu inside, who, like pretty much every other girl in the game, tries to seduce him despite him being a 10-year-old boy. Again, with the girl trouble thing that I will talk about some other time because that is just, yeah, anyways. So, you fight through the temple, get to the boss, which are the crazy twin witch hags that somehow transform into a single entity, which is a single, very provocative entity. Again, any children in the audience, ignore that last statement, do not look up that word. Anyways, you beat her and the two hags. Despite them being twins, they start debating about their age and somehow disagree by 20 full years. And despite being evil, they somehow start floating towards heaven. I don't get it either. So now that your collection of rainbow sages is complete, guess what they do for you? Rainbow Bridge of Doom! I mean, it's really gaudy when contrasted with Ganon's hideously gloomy castle, but still, Rainbow Bridge of Doom! So you go inside the castle and what do you find? Rainbow Barrier of Doom! Ganondorf likes his rainbows. And I also love how the entire time Link is dismantling that barrier, Ganondorf is just sitting upstairs waiting and playing his organ. Yeah, Ganondorf, very productive use of your time. I wholeheartedly approve. And then of course you fight him, and he dies, and his castle collapses, and Zelda insists on running ahead of you and gets herself trapped a couple times along the way. And then Ganon revives as a hideous pig monster, and he knocks away Link's sword. And of course Zelda doesn't have the upper body strength to lift up a sword and hand it back to Link, despite the fact that she had been an awesome ninja lady just hours before. But that doesn't matter, because Link wins anyway, because he's a hero, and the hero always wins. Though despite all of his work, he still can't kill the bad guy. Nor can all 6 of the other sages put together. But that's okay, because now Hyrule is safe, and now it's party time! And oh look! Big Fat King Zora actually managed to drag himself out to Long Long's ranch to celebrate! It's a miracle! And that's pretty much Ocarina of Time's story in a nutshell. Relive this wonderfully illogical story in all its wonderfully illogical glory on the 3DS today! Yes, this entire time I was actually just advertising Ocarina of Time 3DS. Nintendo should be grateful to me. And now my work is done. Bye-bye!
Thank you, Xinnamin.
So, since when did Miss Xinnamin start working for Nintendo?
I don't know, but apparently she's working for the advertising department.
You know what? Remember, guys, we don't want advertising on the podcast. Miss Xinnamin, we're going to be talking to you about this later.
But she's advertising for Nintendo.
That still doesn't count.
I guess. But it was a good segment.
It was. You know what? I can't wait to get my hands on the 3DS Ocarina of Time.